A very good afternoon to all our viewers and welcome to a new edition of Panorama News, our bulletin that brings you the latest in the world of politics, economics and sports. My name is Angie Meher and I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon by my colleague Yasmin Bakir. Afternoon, Yasmin.
Good afternoon, Angie, and good afternoon to all the viewers. We're going to start off with the political segment and here are the headlines. Prime Minister Sharif Ismail and high-ranking officials condemn a Naqab terrorist attack. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi calls for setting a strategic investment policy. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi announces that a cabinet reshuffle is to be declared soon.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Sharif Ismail condemned a terrorist attack that targeted a Naqab security checkpoint in the New Valley late Monday, in which 8 police personnel were martyred and 3 others injured. Ismail condemned the attack, expressing condolences for the families of the martyrs. He reassured that necessary medical care is being provided for the injured. Al-Azhar Grand Imam Dr. Ahmed al-Tayyib also condemned the attack, renewing his support for efforts by the police and army in combating terrorism. For his part, the Minister of Endowments, Dr. Mohammed Mukhtar Goma, mourned the deaths, calling for a full confrontation of the forces of evil. The Grand Mufti, Dr. Shawi Alem, also condemned the attack, saying terrorist groups stand behind such treacherous acts.
Earlier, the Ministry of Interior announced that 8 police personnel were martyred and 3 others were injured in a terrorist attack that targeted a Naqab security checkpoint in the New Valley. A security source said a terrorist group attacked the checkpoint 80 kilometers from Al-Kharga city. He said a firefight broke out and 2 of the attackers were killed. The sources said that police are chasing the perpetrators and all legal procedures are being taken.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi announced that a cabinet reshuffle will be declared soon. This came in the second part of the interview the president gave to the national newspapers Al-Ahram, Al-Akhbar and Al-Jumhuriyya. The president said that boosting the economy, upgrading living standards of Egyptians, as well as providing better education, health and security to citizens are all amongst priorities in 2017. The president said that a new political affairs council is to be formed, which will include consultancy councils. On efforts to fight terrorism, the president called for the cooperation of the international community to eliminate the phenomenon. He noted the war on terror in Egypt is ferocious and as serious as any conventional war.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi called for setting a strategic investment vision to boost investment opportunities with the aim of creating new jobs. This came during the 3rd meeting of the Supreme Investment Council. And the meeting covered steps taken to implement decisions of the Council. During the meeting, the Minister of Investment said that the Cabinet had approved a final draft of new investment law, adding that it was sent to the State Council for revision before being submitted to Parliament. The meeting also approved a plan for promoting direct and indirect investments in 2017.
The Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri leaves late on Tuesday to Bahrain to convey a verbal message from President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Bahrain's King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa. The visit aims at strengthening ties between the 2 states and following up on the implementation of projects carried out under cooperation agreements. During his visit, Shukri is to meet with King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa and Crown Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, in addition to the Prime Minister Prince Khalifa bin Salman Al Khalifa and Foreign Minister Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad bin Mohammed Al Khalifa. The talks are expected to cover the latest developments on the regional and international arenas, as well as issues of mutual interest.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Tuesday he thought it was right to invite the new U.S. administration to peace talks on the Syria conflict that are planned for January 23rd in Kazakhstan's capital. Lavrov said in a news conference that he hoped the Trump administration would accept the invitation and welcomed U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's desire to make fighting international terrorism a priority. We have more details in the following report.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Tuesday that one of the goals of upcoming Syria peace talks in the Kazakh capital was to consolidate the frail truce in the war-torn country. Lavrov was speaking at his annual press conference referring to talks that are to take place in January 23rd. Lavrov added that the talks would also serve as an opportunity to involve rebel field commanders in the political process to end bloodshed in Syria. Organized by rebel backer Turkey and regime allies Russia and Iran, the meetings are the latest bid to put an end to the brutal war raging in Syria since March 2011. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's transition team has been invited to take part, but has not yet officially responded. Lavrov said Tuesday it was right to invite representatives of the UN and the U.S. administration to the Astana talks, but did not say whether the incoming Trump administration had confirmed its attendance. Russia and Turkey last month brokered a ceasefire in Syria, but without the involvement of the United States, a negotiator in the previous truce. The truce went into effect on December 30th and has brought calm to much of Syria, although fighting continues in some regions. Syrian rebel groups said Monday they will attend the talks. If the Astana meetings are successful, they could bode well for fresh UN-hosted political negotiations on the conflict set for next month in Geneva.
Syrian government forces clashed with the Daesh terrorist group fighters for a fourth day on Tuesday in the eastern city of Deir ez-Zor. Daesh began a fierce attack Saturday on the remaining parts of the city under government control and has managed to divide its eastern half from the west. It has also cut the supply route running from the city's key military airport, limiting the government's ability to bring in supplies and military reinforcements. The Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitor said Tuesday that Syria's military and allied Russian forces were carrying out airstrikes against Daesh as government troops battled them on the ground. Daesh terrorist group already controls more than half of Deir ez-Zor city. The Monitor said Tuesday that 3 days of fighting had killed at least 116 people, amongst them 21 civilians, 37 members of regime forces and 58 Daesh fighters.
A UN envoy held talks with Yemen's President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi on a return to a ceasefire and on resuming political talks to end the nearly two-year war. Well, Sheikh Ahmed is hoping to revive peace prospects in Yemen after Hadi rejected his proposed roadmap. More details in the following report.
UN envoy held talks with Yemeni President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi. The United Nations said the death toll from the war had reached 10,000. The envoy Ismail Sheikh Ahmed was in Aden for the meeting that focused on a return of ceasefire and to political talks to end the nearly two-year war. The United Nations said the civilian death toll in fighting since a Saudi-led force intervened in March 2015 had reached 10,000, up from the previous figure of 7,000. UN spokesman said that the higher toll underscores the need to resolve the situation in Yemen without any further delay. Well, Sheikh Ahmed is hoping to revive peace prospects in Yemen after Hadi rejected his proposed roadmap. He is due to report to the UN Security Council later this month. The roadmap provides for a new unity government in Yemen and a rebel withdrawal from the capital and other cities. Under the proposal, Hadi's powers would be dramatically diminished in favor of a new vice president who would oversee the formation of the interim government that will lead to a transition to elections. The envoy has been holding talks in the Gulf region in recent weeks, including in Riyadh, where he met with Yemen's central bank governor to ease a cash crisis in rebel-held areas. The United Nations ranks to the conflict in Yemen as one of the world's worst humanitarian crises.
Turkish police have captured the gunman who killed 39 people in an Istanbul nightclub on New Year's Day after a two-week manhunt, seizing him with 4 other suspects at a hideout in an outlying suburb of the city. Istanbul governor named the man as Abdelgadir Mashiropov and said he was born in 1983 in Uzbekistan and received training in Afghanistan. More details in this report.
A 34-year-old Uzbek man suspected of mowing down 39 people at an Istanbul nightclub on New Year's Eve confessed on Tuesday to the massacre. In a dramatic assault in the early hours of Tuesday morning, Turkish police raided an Istanbul apartment and detained Abdulgadir Musharrapov after a massive weeks-long manhunt. Turkish authorities said the terrorist confessed his crime, adding the suspect's fingerprints matched those of the attacker. He was trained in Afghanistan and can speak 4 languages. He is a well-trained terrorist. Police also confiscated $197,000, 2 firearms and clips during the raid. The rest will come as a relief to Istanbul residents already on edge after a string of attacks who had feared for more than a fortnight that trained killer was on the loose in the city. Local media reports said pictures of the suspect was held and a T-shirt, his neck ripped by a policeman. Daesh group took responsibility for the bloodshed the first time it was over, openly claimed a major attack in Turkey. It had previously been blamed for several strikes in Turkey, including the triple suicide bombings at Istanbul airport in June. At least 35 people had been detained in the investigation before Musharrapov's arrest. Of the 39 killed in the attack, 27 were foreigners, including citizens from Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iraq, and Morocco, who have been hoping to celebrate a New Year's Eve.
The United Nations said the massive Iraqi military operation to retake the city of Mosul from the Daesh terrorist group has made more than 148,000 people homeless. The UN said in a statement released on Monday night that nearly 12,500 people were forced to flee their homes just over the past week. The statement also said that the fighting over Iraq's second largest city continues to inflict relatively high civilian casualties, with more than 1,500 wounded taken hospitals in the nearby city of Erbil for trauma care. More than 1 million people were estimated to still be living in Mosul in October when Iraqi forces and allied Shiite militias launched the operation to take the country's second largest city from Daesh.
A video featuring an audio recording purporting to be the leader of Boko Haram, Abu Bakr Shekau, was posted claiming the group was behind Monday's twin suicide bombing at a university in northeastern Nigeria, which killed 2 people. Sources said it was not possible to verify if the voice was his. A professor at the University of Maiduguri and a child were killed and 17 people wounded in the twin suicide bombing. In early 2015, Boko Haram controlled an area the sun has been for most of the territory by the Nigerian military with help from neighboring countries.
Four people died and nearly 180 are missing, presumed dead, after Saturday's migrant ship capsized in the Mediterranean. Tuesday, after interviewing a handful of survivors, humanitarian workers from the international organizations for migration and the UN Refugee Agency UNHCR recounted harrowing details of the latest major tragedy in waters of Libya after talking to 4 rescued passengers, 2 Eritreans and 2 Ethiopians who arrived on Monday evening in the Sicilian port of Trapani. After hours in the water, the survivors were rescued on Saturday, 30 miles from the Libyan coast by a French boat operating as part of the European Borders Agency. The latest death and rescues follow a record year for the number of migrants trying to reach Europe on the western Mediterranean route from North Africa to Italy. So 181,000 people were registered at Italian ports in 2016, while the UN recorded more than 5,000 deaths and presumed death on all migrant routes across the Mediterranean.
EU heavyweights Germany and France led a sharp European response to US President-elect Donald Trump Monday after he branded NATO obsolete and said more countries would leave the EU after Britain. In a hard-hitting interview with 2 European newspapers, Trump unleashed a volley of verbal attacks on Europe and criticized German Chancellor Angela Merkel's catastrophic decision to open Germany's borders to Syrian refugees. With fears growing in Europe over Trump's commitment to the transatlantic alliance and signs he will pivot towards Russia, Merkel warned that the continent now had to take responsibility for itself. She said Europeans have their fate in their own hands when asked about Trump's criticisms, adding that she'll work towards getting the EU to strengthen the economy and fight terrorism.
Taiwan began 2 days of military drills Tuesday, simulating an attack by China as the government sought to reassure the public in the face of deteriorating relations with Beijing. The island's armed forces gathered in central Taiwan for annual drills that saw troops practice combat skills with tank attacks, helicopters, and artillery. Beijing considers Taiwan to be a breakaway province and part of one China to be brought back within its fold by force if necessary. China has stepped up drills in recent weeks after being angered by an unprecedented call between Taiwan's Beijing skeptic President Tsai Ing-wen and the United States President-elect Donald Trump. In addition to the drills, the Air Force confirmed Tuesday an upgrade of Taiwan's 143 F-16s was underway, with materials supplied by the U.S. aerospace company which manufactured the jets.
The deep-sea search for missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 ended on Tuesday without any trace being found of the plane that vanished in 2014 with 239 people on board. The location of the flight has become one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries since the plane, a Boeing 777, disappeared en route to Beijing from the Malaysian capital of Kuala Lumpur. The last search vessel left the area on Tuesday after scouring the 120,000 square kilometer area of the Indian Ocean seafloor that has been the focus of the almost 3-year search. Malaysia, Australia and China agreed in July to spend the $145 million search if the plane was not found or if new evidence that might offer a clue as to its whereabouts was not uncovered.
U.S. astronaut Eugene Cernan, last man to set foot on the moon, died Monday at the age of 82. Cernan was the spacecraft commander of Apollo 17, his third space flight, and the last scheduled U.S. manned mission to the moon in December 1972. According to a family statement released by NASA, Cernan, a retired naval officer, died following an ongoing health issues on what would be the last manned mission to the lunar surface. Cernan's second to the moon, the crew captured the iconic image of the full view of the planet Earth-dubbed blue marble. The footprints Cernan left on the moon's surface remains visible for more than 4 decades now. Born in Chicago in 1934, Cernan received a degree in electrical engineering from Indiana's Purdue University in 1956. He was one of class of 14 astronauts chosen to join NASA in 1963 and went on to serve on both Gemini and Apollo missions.